He's the CEO of one of Brevard County's largest employers, but CEO isn't typically how people see him. Dr. Desmond Blackburn has been, to many on the Space Coast, a breath of fresh air as the superintendent of the Brevard Public School system. But his tenure hasn't been without controversy, including a recent pay increase while teachers are protesting low wages, and a failed software contract that was dropped in his lap from the previous administration. Welcome to Florida Today's Eye on Brevard. I'm Rob Landers.
And I'm Isadora Rangel. Today I'm talking to Dr. Blackburn about his decision to donate his second raise of the year to a supply store for teachers, teacher pay negotiations, the failed software contract, and state legislation that can make a huge impact on Brevard and the school district's priorities. Thank you for being here, Dr. Blackburn.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Let's start with the news of the week. Your decision to return a salary raise this week. And we're in the midst of negotiations with the teachers' unions over teacher raises. Explain that decision to return your raise.
Well, Isadora, I can call you Isadora, right?
Of course.
It starts with a really, really good thing gone bad, right, by some very, very good people. It starts with our school board members trying to respond to employees, right? So I have to take you back to December in order to effectively answer the question. And we experienced impasse with our union. We were able to come to an agreement with all of the policy language pieces, so I'm grateful for that. But we're still struggling with the 1.5 increase that they're rejecting, and I understand rationale behind that. The employee group, represented by 1010, they also rejected the 1.5 salary increase, and so that left about 790 employees in the district who aren't represented by either BFT or 1010. And so we weren't going to move forward with applying their 1.5 increase because of what happened with the other two groups. At that point, I will tell you, several of those employees actually reached out to our board members and said, hey, you know, we like our 1.5% if you can make that happen. And so at the December 12 board meeting, I believe it was, again, great people trying to do a great thing for great people. The board members discussed it and voted to apply the 1.5% increase to all of the non-bargaining employees. Great thing. They were not. I know it's in their heart. I work with the board members very closely. They were not thinking about me at that point that evening, nor should they have been thinking about me. They were thinking about those 790 employees. But because of what happened this past summer and some changes to my contract language, I in effect became one of those 790 employees, right? And so once we saw that, I mean, giving it back was a real no-brainer because I understand what the board's intent was. But more than just giving it back, I mean, trying to apply it to where there's some real need. And I know that in classrooms across this district, especially classrooms in our high poverty communities, there is a void of supplies and things like that. And teachers, bless their hearts, they go in their own pockets oftentimes to buy supplies for kids. And so contributing the $3,300 to the supply zone run out of Clear Lake by our Brevard Foundation just seemed like a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And what is the current state of negotiations with the teachers union on their raise? I think the district's latest offer was $875 and the union wants $1,075.
Right, it's about 1.5%, and they've asked for the addition. We calculate that addition right across the board because we would, in our position is if there's a % increase for one employee, then we're going to apply it across the board to all employees. And so that request basically generates another 2.6 million of a request that we just don't have, unfortunately, in our coffers right now.
So is that your final offer? Is there room for more negotiation with the teachers union?
Right, so we have actually provided our best and final offer, and so yes, that 1.5 actually represents that.
And do you understand their frustration when you get a raise? Not too long ago, I believe you got a 5% raise.
Sure.
And that caused a lot of frustration among teachers because they see that, why can't we get the same raise? Do you understand that, or you see those as two separate things that are not related?
I absolutely understand their frustration and where their frustration comes from. Bit of clarification though, right? Because I think the truth is worthy enough to have on the table and be part of the conversation. The truth of the matter is that back in 2015, all employees in the district, with the exception of one, received the 5.1% raise, right? And that exception was me. In the following year, teachers received about a modest 1.3% increase. 12-month employees, which I am one, right, did not, right? And so now we're here in the summer before the 17-18 school year. And so the narrative around, hey, let's match the superintendent's increase is actually, unfortunately, a false narrative. The accurate narrative is that the 2017 summer 5.1% increase that the board graciously gave to me actually matched what teachers and all other employees received
it was retroactive.
in 2015,
Okay.
right? And that's just truth. Now, that aside, I absolutely get and understand their frustration. This goes back further than just 2015. This goes back to like 2008, 2009, 2010. There were a 4 or 5 year period. I get it, long before me, but our teachers who love this community, love our kids, they went years, like 4 years, 3 or 4 years at 0% increase. So I understand that the long-term frustration. Since then, this board, this administration, since like 13, 14, have been able to give on average an overall average of about 3% increase with that spike in 2015 of 5.1%. But it's going to take us some time to negate all those zeros starting back from 2008.
And you rely also on the legislature for funding, right?
Absolutely, sure, absolutely.
And one of the biggest impasses in the previous legislative session was how much money we would use from increased tax revenue from rising property values. And again, that's going to happen again this session that started on January 9th. The House says we cannot use that increased the revenues from increased property values. The Senate says we should because that's not necessarily a tax increase. How does that impact Brevard County? And I imagine it plays into raise negotiations with the teachers as well, right? Millions,
Isadora. I was in Tallahassee a few weeks ago before the holiday. I'll be returning to Tallahassee twice, once next week, once in February. At the top of our legislative agenda is asking our lawmakers to maintain, it's called the local required effort. And I'll just tell you, and here's where, again, I so empathize with where teachers and educators are coming from. So you have a scenario where, go back to 2008, when I mentioned, the economy was crashing, property values were coming down, people were losing their jobs, and so rightfully so, state lawmakers rolled back the local required effort, and people understood where salaries had to either stay flat, maybe decrease, folks were laid off, schools were closed, I mean, a lot of bad things were happening. Well, we're not on easy street right now, Isadora, but the economy has come back. There are more and more people moving into Brevard. Drive any street, Brevard, you see buildings happening on top of buildings. And so there's a logic there where, since there's more building and more people and the economy has bounced back, then perhaps everything funded by that local required effort could benefit, should benefit from the increase. That hasn't been the case. We're appreciative of the Senate's support, and we're hoping to get the House support as well.
Yeah, so people understand. So basically what the House Speaker wants to do is basically freeze what people, their taxes. So even if your property value rises, you're paying basically the same tax that you were paying previously.
Absolutely. And again, I get that. Desmond Blackburn, the taxpayer, I understand that. But Desmond Blackburn, the taxpayer, is also concerned with the quality of public education, and our quality is based on our ability to attach resources to our programs and to our people.
And what could we do with that extra money if the Senate prevails in this discussion, which is it's very likely that the House will prevail if we look at the relationship between the two chambers. But if we get that extra money, what can the district do with that money?
That extra money will allow us to go back and make a greater dent in employee compensation, right? So we can use it in our operating dollars. That's right where employee compensation comes from. And there are other priorities as well. So I don't want to, I want to be completely transparent. There are other priorities that the board has that have been articulated to us by our community members, many of whom are teachers and other employees.
I'd like for you to comment on the union's recommendation to teachers that they don't work extra hours or duties that are outside of their contract.
Sure,
They're doing that
sure.
in protest against, in the midst of these negotiations over their raises. What do you think about that? How does that affect students, and should teachers be working more than they're getting paid for, which they have?
Right. My first response, I think Carolyn asked me this over the
probably.
holiday. My first response was just one, concern with the way community members, parents, and perceive what teachers are doing, right? Thinking that their kids are going to come back to a lower effort, from teachers in the new year, right? So just concerned about public perception on teachers. But I will tell you, I've always been in support of the contract. It's our official relationship between the employee, and as management, which I am, I'm in full support of the contract. As a matter of fact, we've been having discussions here at the district office with the leading and learning and people who supervise principals around maybe it's time in education, starting right here in Brevard, where we don't assume that as a community we get something for nothing, right? Where we have this huge employee base that contributes more than they are compensated or even given time to do. Maybe it is time that we all support this effort and help teachers work a more efficient day and get what they get done in their contract hours, and we all hold true to that. So I support the effort.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading Caroline Glenn's story, our education reporter, and one of the teachers is working at least 2 extra hours every day, just going over exams and helping students. I mean, is that really normal? You were a teacher yourself.
I was a teacher, and my wife is a teacher, so we've both been educators now for 22 years. And working more hours than we're paid, it's a commonality in education, right? And so again, totally empathize and understand where teachers are coming from there.
So, and the average Brevard teacher makes roughly $47,000.
Sure.
What would be the right compensation for the average teacher in Brevard?
I love that you asked that question. So the quick response is, I don't know. But we're getting closer to figuring that out, because as part of our commitment to increase compensation, the board launched a compensation study. Because of the freezes that happened in 08, 09, and some other factors, we know that compensation amount, compensation equity and fairness, we know we have that problem across 9,000 employees. So we've launched a study to understand the root cause of it, and to have our consultant give us the problem and give us the plan and show us a timeline on how to bring some kind of equity to what compensation is. So we'll be able to figure that out. Now, we also know the brutal truth. We know that the compensation study is going to reveal a problem that requires this amount of resources to solve, and we hover right around here with our resources. So it's still going to take time to create the necessary equity.
And you mentioned the root problem. What is the root problem? Are we talking about the financial crisis, or?
That's definitely on the list, right? But the study will reveal the exact nature of the problems.
Okay. So in 2013, the district closed 3 schools and
Right.
recently decided to reopen one of them, South
Correct.
Lake Elementary in Titusville.
Correct.
Why the decision to open this particular school?
So everything on our list of priorities, I can feel comfortable saying that we've heard or felt positive responses to based on our listening and learning opportunities that we've had all across the district. And so regularly as I visit communities and schools in northern Brevard, the concern, the pain, the wounds, right, expressed to me over school closure has been enormous. Point one. Point two, Mrs. Belford, who's the board member that represents our past board chair, she represents Northern Brevard, real champion for Titusville and surrounding areas, the entire district, by the way, but has been expressed to her the pain around that school closure. Also expressed the lack of equity in terms of school choice programs. So if you took Brevard County long, 75 miles long, and you broke us up into 3 regions, South, Central, and North, you will find on average more of the choice programs in Central and South Brevard than we have in North. So there was a need to close that gap. And last but not least, access to these phenomenal programs. Years ago, there was something called corridor busing that the district had, and it got eliminated through some of the budget cuts. That's another piece that I heard, the board members heard, as we're out doing our listening and learning tour, as something that the community wanted a remedy for, right? Employees wanted a remedy for. So actually, not only are we restoring choice transportation next school year, which is a cost, we're reopening South Lake Elementary School, which is a cost, and we're adding a choice program at South Lake Elementary. Those are all costs. And yes, some of those dollars could have been applied to salary compensation increases as well. But just understand where we've been as a school system. We're listening to our constituents, and we're hearing that salary is a priority from parents, community members, business leaders, elected officials. Everyone wants increased salary, right? But we also get requests for other things as well. Fix transportation, add more choice programs, reopen the school that was closed, security in schools, literacy coaches. I mean, there are a lot of other needs that get articulated as well.
And can you explain the concept of choice programs and what programs are offered at this school?
So basically, the difference between a choice program and a traditional program, there's this thing called a contiguous boundary, right? So there's a school planted somewhere in the community, and then someone who's much, much smarter than I am draws these lines around and creates a community that is that's bounded, right, or obligated, if you will, to go to that school. The choice program does not have a boundary. The choice program is an opportunity for anyone in that region, and now that we've added regional busing, anyone in the county to access that program. So that's the main difference. And the focus there is going to be STEM with a heavy art focus. So it's actually called STEAM. And we just hired a phenomenal principal in Jennifer Brockwell. She's coming over from Oak Park Elementary School, also in Titusville. We're up around 200 applications right now. We're still hoping.
It's a lottery system, right?
It's a lottery system, absolutely. And so we're really excited.
Is there still time to apply if
Absolutely.
If parents are
Yes,
interested?
please apply. Where's the camera? Apply to South Lake. Apply. Yes.
I want to ask you, in light of the legislative session that just started,
Yes.
There is a bill that's actually being pushed by the House Speaker,
Okay.
which would allow parents of children who are bullied to apply for a voucher to
Right.
attend a private school. What is your position on this particular bill?
One, I'm 1,000% anti-children being bullied, right? And I am a fan and a proponent of school choice and a parent's opportunity to choose where their kids go to school, so I'm okay with all of those things. And if it's not working for whatever reason in school A, and as a family we believe that this child is better off in school B, huge fan, I'm perfectly fine with that. I would, if I had an opportunity to speak to the legislator on that note, I would offer the opportunity to all schools. I mean, if another school B, the next opportunity to relieve the family from the bullying could be, right now I understand it's a charter school or a private, but it could be another public school. It could be our virtual program. I mean, let's not limit the choice options. Right, so that would be my input there.
I think a lot of educators see that effort, among many other efforts, as an attack on traditional public schools. Do you see it that way? Do you feel that the legislature, and let's mention last year's bill, which gave $200 million to charter schools, do you see that there's a trend going on in the legislature against traditional public education?
I am a public school graduate. My children attend public school. I've been a public school teacher, administrator now for 22 years. So my prejudice, my bias is certainly with the public school system. I'm also a parent, and so I also appreciate that as a parent, the school that's right for my kid is the school I want my kid to attend. And there are some feelings that there are anti-public school sentiments in our state house. I think some of that is fueled because of some of the laws that get passed that actually exacerbate inequity among traditional schools, charters, and private. I think if, and my plea, my conversations with state lawmakers is that impose laws that encourage local collaboration, that do not exacerbate an ecosystem of us against them, right? Because that's not good for anyone.
So let's talk about the bill that was passed in 2017. It's
okay.
7069,
69, sure.
The infamous
the big
70s.
Bill, yes.
Among many things, it was
Yes.
what they call a train bill. It gave money for charter schools to basically open up shop next to struggling public schools. The district had the option to join a lawsuit
Yes.
with other districts, but you opted not to. Can you
Correct.
explain that decision and a little bit about what the bill does?
Right. So I have been, and you've written on some of my criticisms towards the State Department of Education and some of the decisions that some of our lawmakers have made around assessment and evaluation and equitable funding and et cetera, et cetera. It's my right, it's my responsibility to be critical, right? I stopped short of, in my opinion, waging a battle or a confrontation against those men and women that this community actually supported, contributed to, voted for, and asked to represent us in Tallahassee. So in Desmond Blackburn's opinion, I stopped just short of waging that piece on our lawmakers. I will call, I will email, I will text, I will visit, and we'll have debate, and we'll disagree, and we'll agree. We'll do those things, but those are our people, and so I don't. It just wasn't a decision, a path that this board or myself thought that was advantageous to us, and we've seen our legislators, our senator and our representatives that we've elected to the State House. I mean, we've seen them secure funds for us year after year. We've seen them help us enhance our career technical programs, and we're great collaborators with them. So we didn't see that as a positive pathway for Brevard County.
And let's talk about another lawsuit with Harris School Solutions. The district recently settled that lawsuit.
Correct.
Over a botched software deal that has cost the district almost $6 million in upgrades.
Right.
The district gets $50,000 from the company. I understand there's not a lot you can say, but why was this settlement a good idea? I think a lot of people see this. The district is only getting $50,000 when we are spent $6 million.
Yeah.
Why is it a good idea for the district to settle like this?
Well, one, and there's no secret here, right? The agreement, the contract was poorly executed, okay? And that could be an understatement. That said, where this board and this administration was in trying to make the best outcome possible, given some circumstances that were beyond our control that happened long before us. And also, as you mentioned, I am limited in what I can say because of the non-disparaging clause in the agreement. That said, the agreement is public access, everyone can read it. It's way more than 50,000, right? So let's start with free maintenance that we desperately need, and that's about a $2 million value. And if we didn't get this for free via that agreement, we'd have to go pay for it. I mentioned the poorly written contract years ago. Still had us on the line for over $1 million worth of additional payment, okay? And so the free maintenance and the getting out of over $1 million of additional payment and the $50,000 cash. So it's a multi-million-dollar settlement to the good of Brevard County.
Do you think, did you walk away feeling good about this settlement, or you feel, oh, I could have gotten a little bit more?
I walked away from that settlement feeling content.
Mm-hmm. And let's, I think we have 2 minutes left,
Okay.
but in light of the #MeToo movement, I want to ask about the sexual harassment allegations against a school board member, Andrew
Sure.
Ziegler. He was cleared of
Sure,
those
sure.
allegations. You said that you want to strengthen the district's sexual harassment policy and training. What has been done so far to address that, especially in light of this national movement?
Absolutely.
And what would that entail?
Well, first of all, testimony to the character of the entire board. We took that matter very seriously, still take it seriously, applied it to a third-party objective investigator to come up with the findings, right? And so we're moving forward to schedule the training that we need for all employees and for the board, and we're moving forward to strengthen our local policies as well. What exactly will that mean? Our folks in human resources and legal department, they have to work out what those details will mean, but we're going to be thoughtful and supportive of all employees in whatever enhancements we create.
Is that a concern to you with this national movement? There's so many allegations coming up. Are you more aware? Are you more, has the environment changed? I think it has for every company, but especially a government agency with, I believe, 9,000 employees. Has that been a concern given the magnitude of this issue?
I'd like to say, Isadora, that I've always been extremely sensitive to the plight of all employees, right? And making sure that everyone's treated fairly and appropriately. And so to the society, to the community, it is definitely, there is some heightened awareness around this piece. But I think for many of us, it is, let's continue to safeguard, protect all employees.
Dr. Blackburn, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Isadora.
That's our show for this week. Our thanks to Dr. Blackburn for joining us in the studio today. If you have questions about today's interview, you can email me at irangel@floridatoday.com.
Be sure to join us again next Wednesday right here on WEFS and on floridatoday.com.